Okay, let's do that. Should get some water, but in any case, we're going to get back to this. Trump, instead of answering the question on why voters should trust more on race issues, took his 2 minutes and directly answered against Joe Biden. Very interesting choice there. He said a lot of things about law and order, which I can't exactly disagree with. There was a whole thing on the in the New York Times, actually, where they're talking about the embedded anarchists that are part of these whole groups. It becomes just to try to overthrow anything. These anarchists will just try to overthrow because for the sake of overthrowing, because they don't want leadership, and then whoever takes leadership, they'll try to probably overthrow that too. It's being allowed. It doesn't seem to actually be for actual promotion reasons or actual progression reasons, except for political reasons. And there are those that think, and if you watch things like the LA School Board or LA Teachers Union, rather, you see the same thing. It's as if they think the only way to progress the country forward, the only way that anything moves forward, is if Democrats are in control. In fact, they put the politics, that political ideology, above all else, whatever it stands for. It doesn't matter what it stands for. If it says Democrat on it, they go for it. Why are we so concerned about these political labels? Why don't we look at what's good for people? And I shouldn't single out the Democrats because Republicans are doing. There are groups of Republicans doing the exact same thing, flipped in some ways, but just because of different ideologies. But they're doing the same thing. They put the term Republican above all else. Why? Why can't we be American? Anyway, I will go. Why can't we be American? I don't know. Gets me. Touches me. Let's go back to watch these two guys discuss.
I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yeah. Okay, I'm actually going to take this question. That's what I've been trying to do anyway. We have in this country a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues that are with police and law enforcement. But you have to remember, in this country, law enforcement, police departments are local. You have the LA Police Department. You have the San Francisco Police Department. You don't have the state of California. Well, you have a state of California Police Department, but we call it the CHP. But we have these local departments. All of that's run locally. The corruption and different issues that people are talking about through police in general are local issues. I don't know your police department. You don't know my local police department. So we need to have those kind of conversations on a broader scale. There are issues and there are things that people are talking about that are being addressed. Just like there are things that are racial issues that need to be addressed, and racial unequal handling of cases. Sometimes it's by department, sometimes by its individual, but it is not in either case. We're talking about racial issues or police issues, and I am keeping those two separate on purpose. They do intersect in some areas, but they are generally, we have two separate sets of issues. They're more local. This is not a global, everything is the same across the United States. That's what makes the United States so great, is our different flavors, our different states, our different communities. And these isolations is why this country works. I'm trying to fight this. We're talking now about this particular case, which we can have a whole discussion just on this case about what should or should not have been done. And by the way, just we can only prosecute breaking the law, not because we want vengeance. Let's gonna say that. But there is issues where we have racial and police intersected and justice issues. But we have to be able to talk about these on what the actual problem is, the root causes, not general, we have a problem nationwide. Because you discount those things that are good, those things that are noble, and those things where they've actually made improvements. And you can't do that if you're going to progress forward. You have to be able to progress forward and acknowledge those improvements, those steps forward. Take what's good and continue to move the rest of it forward. Don't try to globalize. Don't try to make everything evil just because it makes it easier for politics. Back to these guys.
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn.
He actually answered that question pretty well. Frankly, that's a really solid answer of either of them through the night. Trump had a couple close, but
burn down your stores and kill people all over the place.
That
and
is
you say
not
peaceful protest.
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else.
Radical,
and he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
that's this has been an issue multiple times with racial sensitivity trainings, etc. So I've seen materials that's yeah. The question, the way the question was worded on the screen, if you looked at it back just a moment ago, was not the same as what he was saying. He was talking about white privilege and things of that nature rather than dealing with actual issues. There's racial sensitivity training there's like to understand how different people feel about issues, and there's going to the top where it is very much trying to use it as a leverage ideology against this country, and I've seen both situations. It's kind of sad when it's the latter.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to